Hi, my name is Chase Rylands, and I'm the District Wildlife Manager for the Estes Park area for Colorado Parks and Wildlife. This time of year, really starting late August to early October, I mean, it's just a fabulous time to come up to Estes Park and view the elk deep into the rut. It's a great time to really observe the rut behavior and just elk behavior in general, and it's readily available all throughout the valley. You can find an elk and watch the rut going on. If you're going around town or into the Rocky Mountain National Park, if you see a herd of elk out there, if you see a group of cows and calves and yearlings all grouped up with a bull or a couple bulls around, that's what's called a harem, is the group of the cows, the females, and the calves. And then most of the time you'll see one large mature bull hanging around the herd and is kind of taking dominance and control of that harem in the area. Another thing to look for is other bulls and other typically smaller bulls kind of hanging around the outskirts of the area, and we kind of call those satellite bulls, and they kind of hang around and try and sneak in and try and copulate with females. And if they're up for the challenge, then they'll actually go up and challenge and try and fight the bull for control of the harem. Yeah, so I mean, you'll see all throughout the year bulls kind of sparring with each other, playing around a little bit, kind of testing out their antlers and such. And then whenever the rut really begins to happen this time of year, bulls will then begin to actually challenge each other and full-on fight with each other to try and take control of a harem. And it's really an amazing spectacle to see, because these beautiful animals are just putting 110% of their energy into challenging the other animal. And you'll see dirt flying, spit, and everything, and they're just really giving their all to try and take control. One of the communications that you hear from the bull elk is the bugle. And sometimes you'll hear some chuckles after the bugle, and that's really a bull communicating to other bulls in the area and also the harem as well, just establishing his dominance, letting everyone know that this is my harem that I'm taking control of. And as well as you might hear some other bugles from nearby bulls that are, whether they're challenging the herd bull in the area, and it's a really exciting thing to listen and also to see as well. And when they do their bugles, you'll see kind of their head lift up and their nose and mouth up into the sky when they really release out these big bellowing bugles, and you'll hear those all day and all night throughout town and the surrounding area. It's a very challenging time of the year for these bulls, because it takes a lot of energy just keeping control of the harem. So they're constantly trying to make sure that these cows kind of stay in a group and none of them really wander off. They're constantly chasing off other satellite bulls, these smaller bulls trying to come in and sneak into the herd. And on top of that, whenever these other larger bulls come up and challenge them and actually fight them. So it's a constant, drainage of energy for these big bulls. But the payoff, if they're successful, is they get to pass on their genes to the offspring and create the next generation of the herd. The timing of the rut is a very strategic thing for them. So the gestation period for cow elk is about 8.5 to 9 months. And so, when the rut happening in September, early October, then they're dropping or giving birth to their calves around May, early June, and that's the time when, you know, the spring growth is at its peak. You know, there's a lot of fresh grasses and forbs in the area, full with rich water content and nutrients. So it's really the best possible start for these young offspring, so that once they're birthed, then there's food readily available for them. Yeah, so, you know, one of the constant challenges, you know, up here in Estes, and also one of the great things, is that elk and other animals are such readily available for wildlife viewing, and that's one of the things that makes Estes Park so great. However, it does pose, you know, several challenges, you know, because when people see these animals out there, they get excited, they have their cameras, they want to take some good pictures and enjoy the experience, but there's definitely, you know, you want to kind of take a moment and just make sure that you're not, you know, interfering with the behaviors and the actions of any of these animals, keeping the animals safe so that they aren't being pushed out into traffic, and also keeping yourself and other people safe as well. So you really want to keep a safe distance from the animals. You know, bring binoculars if you come up to view elk. You know, if you have a camera, bring a zoom lens for your camera so that you can keep a safe distance and really observe this awesome elk rut behavior where it's uninterrupted. So, you know, one of the things I personally say to people is, you know, kind of make a circle with their hand and then hold it out. And then if you can see the entire body of the elk in that circle of your hand, then you're at a good safe distance away from the elk. Otherwise, if it's way too close and you can see the elk outside of your hand, then you're too close and it could be an unsafe situation. These bull elk, and really all the elk in general, you know, they can cover ground really quickly if they wanted to. You know, these bull elk are averaging about 700 pounds, and that's 700 pounds of pure muscle and 40 pounds roughly of antler on top of their head, and they can run at extremely high speeds and cover ground quickly. So if they feel like you're threatening their harem or themselves, then they're definitely going to challenge that and make sure that, you know, they stay safe and protect their harem. So you just want to make sure you keep an exaggerated distance away from these animals. The antlers, it's an actual branched bone, and it's not a horn like you would see in bovine animals such as sheep and goat and those types of animals. So it's actually the fastest growing living bone tissue in the world in these deer and elk and other cervids. And so whenever it starts out in the spring, you'll see the antlers starting to grow and form what is velvet. And this velvet is living tissue that surrounds a cartilage. And then during the late summer, the cartilage begins to calcify and become bone. And then whenever that happens, the velvet starts drying out and it actually gets itchy on their antlers. And that's why you'll see late summer them kind of scraping their antlers up against tree saplings or bushes or on the ground to scrape off that itchy velvet, dried velvet off their antlers. And then that's whenever you get to see those awesome brown and kind of ivory tipped antlers that you see on them this time of year. So whenever they shed their antlers, it's in mid-spring, probably about around March, and that's whenever they'll actually drop their antlers, and then several months later, then they'll start to grow a new set.